A brie style recipe that's ready in 7 days? Join me for easy breezy. Before you start, it's always really important to sanitize everything. So wash it in hot soapy water and then use a sanitizing solution like Star San, which is what I've done here. Always put your spoons face down on a drying surface, otherwise they'll stay wet. Now there is a lot in this recipe. You'll find the full printed details in the comments below. We're using 3 litres of 3.25% pasteurized homogenized milk, regular milk from the store. We're using 1 litre of 10% half and half. Check that there are no additives. Now, the reason I'm using half and half instead of adding cream is because in Canada you can't get cream without additives in it. So this is the easiest solution, specifically if you're in Canada. 1/16 of a teaspoon of floralac or other brand Flora Danica, 1/32 of a teaspoon of TAC or other thermophilic, 1/16 of a teaspoon of Penicillium Candidum, and yes, that is a lot, I will explain later, 1/64 of a teaspoon of Geotrichum Candidum, a 1/4 teaspoon of single strength rennet, and a 1/4 teaspoon of calcium chloride because we're using store-bought milk. If you're using raw milk, you can leave that out. Don't forget to always sanitize around the neck of your milk bottle and your cream before you use it, because those dry flakes of white powder are dried milk and that is a contaminant. Heat your milk to 34.5 degrees C, which is 94 degrees F. And then we're going to add in 4 drops of annatto. Now the reason that we're adding annatto is to provide a colour contrast with the white pillowy outside. Be careful, this stuff stains everything. Because it's store-bought pasteurized homogenized milk, we're adding a 1/4 teaspoon of calcium chloride in about 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. You can leave that out if you're using raw milk. Now we're going to sprinkle our cultures across the top and leave them to rehydrate. There's quite a few cultures for this and you do need all of them. So I'm using floralac, which is a Flora Danica. We're going to use a 1/16 teaspoon. Make sure that it is flat, not heaping. A 1/16 teaspoon equates to about 0.22 grams. This is the starter bacteria. This is what's actually going to acidify this curd. Now, although this is not a stabilised paste recipe, we are also going to add a thermophilic. So I'm using TAC and we're going to go in with a 32nd of a teaspoon. That's a really, really small amount, but it's just there to help with the flavour profile because this ages so quickly. So again, level, not heaping, and that's TAC thermophilic. You can use any culture that has St.Thermophilus in it. Now we move on to the moulds. This is Penicillium Candidum or PC. And we're going to use a 1/16 teaspoon of this. Now that's a high dosage for 1 gallon of milk essentially. But again, this is a very fast aging cheese and we want that white mould growth to come in hard and fast. And then just to temper that so it doesn't go absolutely crazy and grow brain-like, we're going to put in 1/64 teaspoon of Geotrichum Candidum or GC. Again, you want to make sure this is level. It's a tiny amount, but it does seem to be the magic amount. The reason that we leave it to sit for a little bit before we stir it in is because we're adding a powder to a liquid. So if you let it sit, then it will just soak in and it will be a lot easier to mix. Now we leave this to ripen for 1 hour. Bear in mind we don't keep the heat on during this time, but if you find that your temperature does drop, you can always bring it back up really carefully. Don't let it go over. Now that you've got the cultures in there, you don't want to kill them off, especially the mesophilic. So now I've gone in with a 1/16 of a teaspoon of Neutralac. Now it's important that you do this after the culture has had time to ripen. If you do it before, you will mess up the process. So just one final check on the temperature before we go in with the rennet, which we're going to add in 1/4 cup of non-chlorinated water. This is single strength calf rennet. Now we need to stir this in and mix it well, but mix it quickly. So you've got about 45 seconds between adding the rennet and when you want to take the spoon out of there. So just make sure you've got it mixed all the way through. And then take your spoon out once you've stilled the milk. And we leave that to coagulate for an hour. Meanwhile, get your moulds ready. These need to be food grade and sanitized. I've got some little heart moulds here and I've got a silicone baking tray that I bought at a thrift store and then I slashed it with a razor so that there is somewhere for the whey to escape. Now those crenellated hearts turn out to be an absolute nightmare. So if you can go with flat sides, that's a great idea. You're looking for a clean break. Now, bearing in mind, this is a soft cheese, it will be a sloppy curd. That's just fine. That will work perfectly. Now, we don't cut this curd. What we're going to do is we're going to ladle it into a colander that we've lined with a cheesecloth. Now, this is an 80 thread count cotton, so it's thicker than your average cheesecloth, but it's not quite butter muslin. This is the only cheesecloth I ever use, the only thing I stock in my store. I don't find that I have any problems using this for exactly everything. So really carefully, slowly ladling the curd. We're trying really hard not to break them up. We do not cut the curd because we don't want to lose all of that moisture. Now, bearing in mind something I hadn't thought of, my colander is not big enough to hold a mass of 4 litres of curd. So about halfway through, I had to change out my colander, which got kind of messy, but I had some help. So new sanitized colander, trying to be as gentle as possible. Obviously, I've speeded this up. When you get to the last little bit, you can pour it in there. Now you see some of those curds have broken up a fair bit on the top. That's a problem, but it's fine. We'll leave it be. We're going to let this sit and drain for a solid hour. So you can see quite how much this curd mass has dropped. Now we're going to use a sanitized spoon to ladle these curds into our moulds. I'll speed this up. And when you realise that you still have curd left at the end of the moulds, you pull out some more moulds. Gotta say the maple leaf was a bad idea. That stalk just snapped off the first time I tried to flip it. The other two are really, really handy. So we're going to leave these to drain for 12 hours without flipping them at all. Normally when you're making a cam or a brie type recipe, you flip them and you flip them and we're not doing that. We're going to leave it for 12 hours. I'm just draining off the whey right now. And then I'm going to flip these one time. Yeah, the maple leaf was a bad idea. Doesn't matter how much you try and put it back together. That stalk's not staying there. And that's how we learn. Now we keep these babies at 13 degrees C, which is 55 Fahrenheit. Now this is the upper end of cave temperatures. It needs to be there for the white mold to grow. So I have drained them for, I think, 12 hours. And they're going to go on these sushi mats, which are on chopsticks. And the lid of the box is actually underneath those sushi mats and chopsticks. And then I'm going to turn the bottom of the box over and have it as the top of the box. It's going to become the lid of my hastening chamber. That's what we're going to call this ripening box that is at warmer than cave temperatures, or the top end of cave temperatures. See what I mean about the crenellated hearts? They didn't really work as well. So I'm on the lookout for another set of heart molds, I think. You could make these bigger, but they will take longer. So you're looking for something that is 1.5 to 2 inches max. And that will age out in 7 to 10 days. On day 5, when you realise that you left 2 of these too close together and they've kind of conjoined, oops, that scarring will not heal, but it's fine. It'll still be tasty. Look at all that white fur.
And this is Easy Briesy. This brie style recipe ages in just 7 to 10 days. That is super fast. Now you will see that the paste is still relatively firm and chalky. This does not devolve into goo. It won't go runny. It's not a stabilized paste recipe, but because of the use of thermophilic culture as well as mesophilic culture, this one ages out super fast. So it's literally 9 days. So there is a little bit of cream line you can see just around the edges. Let's have a taste. This is perfect. There's light, earthy, mushroomy notes. It's not overpowering. The rind tastes a little more strong. There's no ammonia. Yes, it's a very small cheese. You know, it started off about 1.5 to 2 inch wide. So that would help with the hastening of the aging there, but there's no way this wouldn't pass for like a 4 or 5 week old brie. So you have plenty of time to make this before Valentine's Day, and because it's so small, you can eat it on your own if you want to, or, you know, if you have to because of that restraining order, whatever your circumstances. Easy Briesy.
Thanks for joining me. You can buy everything that you need to make this delicious cheese at home from cheeseneeds.com.